Hi and welcome back to this Intro to Nmap tutorial presented by Ajax. In this tutorial we're going to go ahead and do a walkthrough that you can follow along with on how to use Nmap. So for this tutorial we're going to, it's going to be done on my local network, and so make sure you get permission for whatever network you're going to do your scans on, both for this tutorial and for whenever you use Nmap. So we're going to do 6 scans. So they're going to demonstrate the basic Nmap scan, OS and service detection, Traceroute, UDP scans, as well as the -v flag. And so the other thing about this is I have Metasploitable 2 running on my network. I'm going to post these output files in the description below for you to look through. And so as we go along, go ahead and see, and as you look through those files, see if you can figure out which host is Metasploitable to. And then I'll tell you at the end of the video which one is Metasploitable to. So with that, let's go ahead and get started with some examples. Okay, great. So go ahead and pull up a terminal in whatever operating system you're using. And again, just to reiterate, make sure that you are authorized to perform these scans, both for this tutorial and in the future. That applies to a network, applies to a domain, whatever you may be scanning. So the first scan that we're going to do is just the basic Nmap scan. So if you come and type Nmap and then put in whatever you're scanning. For me, I'm going to be doing my local network. So for me, that's 10.0.0.0/24. So go ahead and hit enter. The scan should only take, shouldn't take too long, maybe under a minute. And so while that's running, let me talk about a couple of the other scans we're going to be doing. Some of these scans that we're going to do can take a really, really long time. For example, a couple of mine took close to 5 days to run. And so if you do not want to wait that long, which I don't blame you for, I am going to, we're going to cover the output here, and we'll get to that in just a minute. So we ran Nmap on the local network, and what it comes back with is it says, here's when it ran, it started at this, and now it's going to go through each of the hosts. So this first one is my router, and what it did is it came back and listed these approximately 7 open or filtered ports. In Nmap, under state, it's going to come back and give you 3 options, either filtered, opened, or closed. Open means it's wide open, anybody can access it. So for example, HTTP and HTTPS are open, so that's a good thing. Something like Telnet or SSH, they're filtered. And that means that they have to be they're filtered through the firewall, and they're not easily accessible. And then closed generally means that well, basically the port is closed. So so I found some other things that came here and found these couple of ports open at this IP address. At this host, all the ports were closed. But beyond that, all it really does is just tells us this basic Nmap scan is what's the IP address, what its latency is, if it's up, and then any open or filtered ports. So this is sometimes a good way to just baseline how long it may take you to scan a network. It can also just give you some really basic information to just say like, hey, you know what, it looks like this is a pretty secure network, or let's come over here to this output because I've actually closed Metasploitable. But if you look here, this at this one, you can see all of these open ports here. So like SSH and Telnet, they're not filtered. That's a security risk. So if you're conducting a penetration test on a network, just doing a basic Nmap scan can give you an opportunity to figure out if and where any vulnerable devices are. So that's the basic Nmap, and this is going to be titled just Nmap in the description below where you can download it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do OS detection. So the command that you do for that is nmap-o, capital O, and then your network address. So this one takes a little bit longer. So we're just going to, and so do the rest of these, so we're just going to come here and we're going to look at the results for this. Because my network has several devices on it, for this tutorial we're going to just focus on just my router. So that's 10.0.0.1. Excuse me. And then I've also redacted some information from this. So like the MAC address here on line 13, typically shows what that is, but just for privacy and security reasons, I've gone ahead and taken that off. Excuse me. So the other thing is that when you output Nmap to a file, the very first line will show you which command you ran. Whereas if we come back and look here at standard out, it just tells you that it started when it started and doesn't show you the command, which is fine because you can just go through your history and figure out what it was. But in this case, I did -O capital N, and so I outputted this to just the standard Nmap format, and I named the file just OS, so which you can see here. And so compared to the last one, which took about 30 seconds, this scan for me took about 1.5 minutes. One of the advantages, so that's the thing with Nmap, is typically the more detail and information you want, the longer the scan is going to take. So you have to make some trade-offs in what you're doing. So if you are really pressed for time, you may not want to run some really detailed scans. You may just need to do some really basic things and then go from there. If you're doing a pen test where they've miraculously given you a lot of time, or maybe your manager wants you to do a really thorough scan of your network and gives you a lot of time to do that, you can run some even more advanced scans. And so, and forgive me, this scan actually took 6.5 minutes. This operating system. So we have the same information as before. We still have these 7 TCP ports, but then we also get the MAC address. We're told what type of device it is. We're told the kernel that it's running. So in this case, it's either Linux version 3 or 4. And then we get some more operating system details, as well as the network distance. So because this is my local network, it's just going to be one hop. So that basically does. Oh, and then the other one, we'll do another quick example. We'll come down here to IP address 241. If it shows up here, I guess it didn't. So, but as you go through these, so for example, this one looks. If we look at .84. This one looks like it's an iPhone. And sometimes you get this TCP IP fingerprint. What this means is Nmap wasn't able to figure out what operating system the device is running. And this is routinely updated both by the creator of Nmap as well as contributors. So in this case, if I know what device this actually is, like let's say it's running iOS 11, I can come here and submit that to Nmap, and then that'll update it for everybody to use in the future. All right, so let's go ahead and let's move on to our third scan, which is service detection. In this case, for some reason it didn't output the command, but I'll copy and paste that up there. The command we ran for service detection is nmap-, well, you can read it here. and then we name the file service detection. So if we come here and we look at what we've got here, kind of the advantage of this scan over OS detection is that we can see the specific version of software the different hosts are running. So so in this case, we can see that it's running Linux 3.12.14, whereas here in the OS scan, if we go back, we just know that it's somewhere between Linux 3.2 and 4.8. And it turns out that in this case, that OS scan wasn't, or in this case, we know that it's actually running 3.12.14. This scan actually took 1.5 minutes to run. So just Nmap took 30 seconds. The operating system took about 6.5 minutes, and service detection took about 1.5 minutes. And so that's that for the service detection. Well, I guess one more thing about it is it does give us a little bit more version. It does give us version info right here. And so it tells us that port 53, which is DNS, it shows us the DNS mask version that's running. On port 2601, it tells us what routing software it's using. And so that can be, again, really valuable in helping you figure out what vulnerabilities a network or host can have. All right, so these next 4 scans take a really, really long time to run, or they usually can. So this first one is a traceroute. Let me just scroll back up here to the top. So here's the command we ran. We also ran a -v, which gives us some more debugging information. So as you can see, -v starts telling us which hosts are actually down. And it also tells us what the RTT is. And RTT means response, I'm forgetting it, response time turnaround, which means how long does it take my device to connect, to establish a connection with the other device, and then for that device to get back to me. And so if we come down here, keep scrolling, all the way down to line 440, you can see here that this RTT for my router was just a little over 9 milliseconds. And so what this scan did is it did a -O to detect the operating system version. It did a -P0, so it looked on all ports, including port 0. And then we also did -A, which enabled operating system detection, version detection, script scanning, and traceroute. So a couple of the commands there were redundant, but that won't hurt your scan. And then I did -O capital A, and that will outputted the scan to all the formats. And so if we quickly just scroll down here to the very, very bottom, it tells us how long it took to run. In this case, it took almost 294,000 seconds. That's approximately 81.5 hours or 3.5 days. So this is a scan you'd really only want to run if you need a lot of information. So let's come back up here. Again, we're on about line 440. And if we look at our router, there are a couple of differences. So we still have our ports, the state that they're in, the service that's running, as well as the version. But then we get a little more information. So if we come down here to port 443, which is HTTPS, and I've redacted a lot of this information, but you can see what the SSL cert is, you can see the public key type, how many bits are used, excuse me, you can see how long the certification is valid for, and you just get a lot more information from this. The other thing is down here on line 475, if you come down here, you have a TCP sequence prediction difficulty. And what TCP sequence prediction is it's a technique used by attackers to create counterfeit packets, and which enables them to gain control of a session, hijack sensitive information, etc. In this case, predicting that it gives it a numerical difficulty, and it's extremely difficult, so Nmap tells you good luck. And then the other thing is, like we talked about again, just recap, here's Traceroute, as well as here on line 474. Traceroute tells us how long the hop was to the device. Okay, in this case it's 1. You can also see that they're on line 474. So let's then move on to this next one. And this one is an aggressive service, port, and operating system scan. So you can, I'll just scroll up here to the top real quickly so you can see what this scan was. This is the scan right here. So there's an aggressive scan. We're scanning a lot of ports. And again, refer to the description below for what all of these tags mean. But basically what we're doing is, as I scroll back down, we're doing an IP protocol ping. We're going to do a TCP SYN scan. We're doing a service version. We're scanning all ports. And we're aggressively looking for what the operating system is. So if we come back here to the router, just like the last one, you end up with a lot more of this information, like SSL certification info. The primary difference between the two, this one and the Traceroute scan, is really just that the operating system detection is a little more aggressive. So this scan took 31.5 hours, or about 1.3 days. So that's about 60% faster than the previous scan. And really, like, in addition to the operating system scan being more aggressive, another thing that this scan found that the other one did not is on line, which one is this? I'm forgetting it. It did find the HTTP title on port 80. And then, so that's really it. And so comparing the previous scan, which took 3.5 days, compared to this scan, which took 1.3 days, really brings up a really valuable point, which is sometimes you may put in commands in to Nmap that may take it longer to get the same information from a command that could go faster. So as you scan, and if you're going to do a really large scan, like even your local network, it's important that you first consider first scanning a host that which you know is up, and then see if that scan gets you the info that you need. If it does get you the info that you need, you could then proceed with scanning the rest of the network. If the scan doesn't get you back the information that you need, then readjust, retest, and then go from there. You might want to also try different tests and see if you can get the same information in a quicker way. So you can actually run Nmap at the same time. So if we come here and we just do this Nmap and this Nmap, right? So you can run multiple Nmap commands at the same time. You're not limited to just one. All right, so with that, let's then move on to our fifth scan, which is our local network, but with UDP. So the difference between this and the previous scans is that obviously it's going to look for UDP, open UDP ports, as opposed to just previously looking for just the TCP port. The other thing is we're going to treat all the hosts as if they're online. You might want to do that to see if maybe there's a host that has been set up and can trick Nmap into thinking that the host is down, but it still has open ports. And so this scan then produced almost over 40,000 lines of debugging code. So scroll down to line 40,231. Oh, and I'm sorry, this is the 6th and the final scan. Because it's produced so much info, I've created a truncated version, which really takes off most of the first 40,000 lines, except for which hosts are down. And so both of these will be posted. There's a LAN with UDP.txt and then LAN with UDP truncated.txt. So we'll just go ahead and we'll just look at the truncated version. And so this scan took 113.5 hours or 4.7 days to complete. So putting that into perspective, our second longest scan took us about 3.5 days, and the basic Nmap scan that we ran took just about 30 seconds. So again, to reiterate, make sure that you're running scans that's going to get you the information that you'd need, and that'll get it to you within the time frame that you're restricted to. Really the biggest difference between this and the other scans is that this scan did find several more open ports. And so specifically it found 7 additional ports on the router, bringing the total open ports on the router that we knew about from 9 to 16. And so if you need to find all the open ports on a network, this could, as well as all the host operating systems, this could be a command that you need to run. And so with that, we've gone through all of our examples. And again, because of time constraints, we've only focused on my network's router and didn't really discuss or look at the other hosts. And so if you download these files, you can go ahead and look through them and become familiar with the output and see if you can find anything interesting. I guess I spoiled it at first, but if you've been looking through these files trying to figure out which one is Metasploitable 2, it's 10.0.0.140. So in this case, yeah, this is obviously, if you don't know what Metasploitable 2 is, it's an operating system that's been designed specifically to be highly vulnerable, so that people can test out their penetration testing skills as well as their OS hardening skills. And so once again, this tutorial has really only scratched the surface of what Nmap can do. Some of its other features include inputting targets from lists, conducting various types of ping scans, doing stealth scans to get around firewalls and intrusion detection systems. You can spoof your IP or MAC address. You can also create customizable scripts to do what you need it to do, and there's a lot more. So if you want to learn more about Nmap, we highly recommend visiting Nmap's official website, nmap.org. There's also a YouTube channel called Hack5, HAK5, and they have some really good tutorials on Nmap as well. So with that concludes our tutorial, and we thank you for watching this. And if you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, how could we do better, or the things we didn't explain clear enough, please feel free to comment below, and we'll definitely take a look at those comments and take them seriously, consider them as we go forward and make more videos. So thank you again for watching, and we at Ajax hope you have a great day.